Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast, your home for inspiring conversations with outdoor insiders. Each week, author, speaker, adventurer, and outdoor industry veteran Rick Saez talks in depth with iconic brand founders, sales and marketing pros, product designers, and industry rising stars. Listen in when Rick's guests offer actionable advice to land your ideal industry gig and grow your outdoor career. Catch us again when the conversation shifts to the hottest outdoor products, destinations, and the latest industry insights. And now, here's Rick.
Welcome to episode 298 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Hestra Gloves marketing manager Drew Eakins. Drew and I talk about Hestra's family lineage, the quality and attention to detail that goes into every design, development, and production process, and we geek out a bit on Seth Godin. Hey Drew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to catch up with you. Our paths have crossed many times, I'm sure, but it's finally nice to talk with you to meet you in person one day.
Yeah, it is a small world that we run in, and the paths are quite interconnected.
Yeah, it's interesting. I launched a show a few years ago, and you think that you've been in the industry. I've been in the industry for a long time. You know a lot of people. But then when I did this, it's like, man, I don't know anybody, And it's a good place to be for me on the podcast because I can talk to everybody and anybody, and this is a lifetime job.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everybody has great stories. So let's start off with how you were introduced to the outdoors. How'd that come about?
Yeah, I have a pretty unique entry into the outdoors. I was raised in South Georgia, and my dad was a lifelong state park superintendent. So I was actually raised on state parks from the time I was born until I finished high school. So I finished high school in a little town called Pine Mountain, Georgia, and I think the population is about 1,700 people, and we had about 10,000 acres of state park as our backyard. So my brother and I spent a lot of time outside, and my dad was really passionate about the outdoors. And I like to tell everyone, when I was born, my dad was actually skiing.
Yeah.
So I like to liken my love for skiing back to that. And so, yeah, deep roots in the outdoors and hiking and skiing and all those things. I can point that back to day one, even to the very beginning. So that was my entry into the outdoors.
Wow, good for you. So you guys got to just play outside, and he probably got you into hiking and some of those activities right out of the gate. What are your earliest memories? What's your first memory of doing something outside?
Yeah, I remember when I was probably, 4 or 5, going fishing at the ponds in the park with my friends and having friends over, and we had 10,000 acres to run around. So we would do little group backpacking trips with our friends and their dads. And so I just have a lot of fond memories of this. Appalachians kind of dump out right where I grew up. And so we were at the very, very foothills there. So, it's funny now living in Colorado, the term mountain is very broadly used because we call those mountains back at home. And then here I can look out my window and see Mount Evans, which is over 14,000 feet. So got to start in the little mountains and then now kind of move further west and playing in the big mountains.
Very cool. Yeah, I got the same thing out my front door. Big 14,000 foot peaks. It's awesome. All your buddies must have wanted to come over and play with you. I mean, you guys could have some awesome ditch games, right? I mean, holy cow, the whole park.
Some things I won't share on the podcast.
Yeah, right. Where's Drew? He's not home for dinner yet. What's he doing? And then you got 10,000 acres to go find him. That'd be tough. And so your educational background includes studies at traditional schools like Sam Houston State, Ohio University, and Georgia Southern. But I'm most interested in your experience at Seth Godin's marketing seminar and alt MBA. How did you choose those?
Yeah, so when I got out of my master's program at Sam Houston State, Master in Sports Management, it was really the worst time possible to graduate. So it was during the recession. Yeah. And I'll never forget, during my wife's graduation, she went to Texas Tech. The guy who gave the speech at her graduation said, "Man, you guys picked a bad time to graduate."
Nice, thanks.
And so I'm the type of person that I was just searching, man, trying to find some kind of foothold in the industry. And at that point, I wanted to be in marketing and sports, whether that was pro, college, or to a lesser extent at that point, the outdoor industry. So I started thinking about how can I really dig into these skills that I need. And one thing led to another. I ended up getting jobs in Colorado, getting into the outdoor industry, and really learning that I still needed those skills. And Seth Godin is a hero of mine. He has written tons and tons of bestsellers and has a really thoughtful way of approaching marketing. And so when I started really digging into what it meant to market in the outdoor industry and what it meant to build trust and to stoke the fires of people wanting to get outside and how we could come alongside people and partner with them in ways that were meaningful. Seth's writing is something that I just continually came back to because he can cut away all the noise that surrounds the things we do, right? And he can get to the heart of the issue.
Gets to the chase in like 2 words.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's blogged every day for years and years and years. So, he's a high output guy, but he can really cut through the noise. And so one of the things I wanted to do was learn more. And so started researching, and a colleague of mine said, hey, you should try the marketing seminar. If you know anything about these seminars, they are intense. It is multiple writing prompts a week, if not per day. And it's this boot camp of sorts where you go through and you really dissect everything that you do, your perspectives, how you come alongside the people that you're trying to market to, and the things that are most compelling in those relationships. And how do you use your brand as a driver for good? How do you build trust with people who might be partners in using your products? And how do you really get to the core of what it means to market a product to someone? And really, how do you solve the problems that those people are facing? And how do you put yourself in their shoes? And so through the marketing seminar, I really got a grasp of that. There were a lot of writing prompts and a lot of things that were exploratory in terms of how you approach your users. And then the Alt MBA is like that times 1,000.
Wow. Yeah. It seems like it.
It's 6 weeks of intensive. I can't remember how many projects you ship through that program, but it is tons and tons and tons of projects. And you're working silently by yourself. You're working with teams. You're doing all kinds of different things. I remember one of the prompts was we had to sit down and put together 99 business ideas.
Wow.
And the premise of that is, hey, let's not worry so much about the fear. And he always talks about dancing with fear, right?
Yep.
And so the fear is what keeps us from doing the best work and keeps us from shipping our work. And so the whole premise of the whole program is let's dance with that fear. Let's do the hard labor. Let's really press into these things, because a lot of times the hard way is the right way.
Yep.
And we just get in our own way of launching those things by saying, oh, well, what about this? What about that? And it's really about, hey, let's try things, right? Like, let's put things out there and see what happens. Because iteration is where real meaningful change happens. And that hard emotional labor is where you get better and you learn more, and trial and error is not a bad thing, right?
Right.
And so that Alt MBA I did, I think 2 years ago now, and it was transformative. So yeah, I would recommend that to anyone.
Yeah, that's been on my bucket list for a while. I discovered Seth maybe a couple, 2-3 years ago, and I read his blogs every day, and I signed up for one of his mini courses. I forget the name of it, but it was a couple weeks course. But you're right. I mean, I was 2 days into it and I couldn't keep up. I had to bail. It's like, I just don't have time to do this. But it's just assignment after assignment after assignment. And the other thing I love about my little small exposure to that was how collaborative it was. I mean, it was people from all over the world, all walks of life, all kinds of backgrounds, and given different perspectives and input on your little project. It was just hugely transformative.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think in my groups on Alt MBA, I had people from someone who's an advisor to the president of Zappos. I had a designer who worked for Netflix and a lot of the big movie posters you see. She put the art together for those. We had a mom who was trying to start her own coaching business. We had me. I work at a glove company. So there was a really broad spread of people. And that's one of the beautiful things about it, is that you have this collaboration with people who have completely different perspectives.
Mm-hmm. And the collaboration is completely positive. I mean, it's just great feedback. You know, even the critical feedback, the way that somehow when you get into his programs, you just put a different hat on and you speak differently and act differently and deliver your message differently. It's just fantastic. If any of you haven't checked out Seth Godin, just Google him. He's all over the place. His books are great. His blog is great.
Absolutely. Yeah. His blog is seth.blog. So very easy to find.
And daily. He's been doing that daily for years. It's incredible. Yeah. All right. Enough geeking out on Seth. Congrats, Seth. We love you. Keep it up. I'm sure he's not listening, but maybe he might be. You never know. So your work life seems to be focused on climbing. How did you connect with Hestra Gloves?
Yeah. So in 2012, we moved to Colorado, my wife and I, and we had actually come up on a weekend trip. We'd always wanted to live in Denver, but just had never made the jump. We were living in Houston, where my wife is from at the time. And just by way of the recession and graduating at the wrong time, she got a job at her home school district. And it was literally the only job either one of us got across the U.S. So we applied for jobs from Florida to Alaska.
Holy cow.
And that was it. There was very little available at that time, and people were searching for jobs. So we were among the least qualified, which is not an ideal place to be in that scenario. But we took a weekend trip up to Colorado on a whim. And I'll never forget sitting in downtown Denver, drinking a beer on the day we were leaving and kind of looking at her and her looking at me. And we both said, we got to do this. We got to make the move. And so we ended up saying, hey, whoever gets a job, if one of us has to get a job. And if one of us gets a job, we're making the move. She got the job at a small charter school. She's an educator. She's excellent at what she does and linked up with a school here. And so I was looking and I got linked up with an organization called the Climbing Wall Association.
Okay.
So they're based in North Boulder. And at that point, that industry was about to take off. And little did I know that it was about to take off. So they hired me on as their marketing manager and events manager. And so through that, got some connections and stayed for a couple of years, grew the trade show there, doubled the size, really got to experience exponential growth and be at the center of an industry that was just exploding, which is super fun. And through those connections, found a job with Chris Klinke at Trango. And Trango's a legacy, like heritage Colorado climbing brand, been around for 20 plus years, also has Tenaya Shoes as a distribution partner. So
I didn't know that.
Spain. Yep, absolutely. And they also do eGrips climbing holds. So
okay.
I got brought on as the marketing director for those three brands. And so that was my climbing roots. I climbed through college and stuff, and it was a good fit. And after 4 years at Trango, I found this job at Hestra and had skied a lot through my years here in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And Hestra, to me, was the pinnacle of outdoor brands. And it's privately held. It's Swedish designed. They own their own factories. It is just seen as this kind of creme de la creme brand in the industry. And when the job came open, I was like, I just can't not be a part of that. That's something that I really want to pursue. And luckily, I hit it off with the team here immediately, and within a few days had an offer, and the rest is history.
Wow, good for you. You got a great background, though. That's how it positioned you well for that. So Hestra makes beautiful products. I mean, I've never owned a pair of Hestra gloves, I don't think. I would remember that, I'm pretty sure. But I was poking around the website. Tell us about the product. I mean, I love a lot of these European brands. The quality seems to be, they put it at the top of the list. It goes first, and then everything else comes second, which is what I love. So the genesis of Hestra goes back to 1936 in this little town in southern Sweden called, ironically, Hestra. So Martin Magnusson, who's the founder of the company, was living in Hestra and realized that there was a need for the local lumberjacks to have good gloves. They were trying to do their jobs throughout the harsh Scandinavian winters. And as you know, it gets really cold, really dark, and really wet up there. And so he looked around and said, okay, what are the best natural materials I can source to help these guys do their job and stay warm and still have good dexterity and the durability they need to make it through the winter doing their job? And so he put together wool, leather, and then riveted them together so that they would be super durable. And so I've actually seen some of the first pairs of mitts he ever put together. So we have them in the vault, Hestra proper. So he put those together, and then a year later, fortuitously for us, a ski basin opened in Hestra. And so Europe at that time was becoming more mobile. People were moving around a lot more. People were seeking recreation post-war. And so they were able to really take that expertise in glove making and start building ski gloves. And so there was a lumberjack user, and now there was a ski user who needed a good solution. And there just happened to be a lot of opportunities from a materials perspective in southern Sweden. And so we kind of paired that expertise with the user needs. And today we are in the fourth generation of Magnusson family ownership of the company. We own 4 factories around the world, and all of our designs are based out of Hestra. So our office there has a design team, and they do every single design for the entire company, of which we have 400 plus models at this point. So we have gloves for everything from horseback riding to skiing, mountain biking. We have belay gloves. We have work gloves. We have high-end dress gloves. So anything you need a glove for, we have. And so the line has really grown on that impetus and on that foundation of quality glove making. We actually have 2 of the fewer than 100 master certified glove cutters in the world on our staff. And glove cutting is a dying art. And so one of our imperatives as a brand is to keep that art alive and to keep practicing it and passing it on to the next generation. So is there someone he's training right now?
So we have the 2 on staff, and then the 5th generation of Magnusons has been born. So we have ages, I think 3, and then a couple of babies in the family. And so I would imagine that those will get onboarded at some point.
They're crawling around the cutting floor right now.
Yep, absolutely.
That's very cool. And the website's beautiful too. So with all those different categories that you're in, tell us about the brand. That's a lot of marketing initiatives to put together.
Yeah, it is. So we kind of divide the brand into 3 distinct pieces. So one is sport, which most people know us for, which is ski gloves. If you've ever seen the white leather, generally that is a Hestra glove. It's pretty iconic to the brand. And then we have a dress side of the business, which in the U.S. is headquartered in New York City. So we have a showroom there, and we do a lot of high-end leathers. We take a lot of the performance attributes and the craft of glove cutting from the sports side and use that on the fashion side. So those gloves are also super functional. And then we have a work glove line called Hestra Job, and that is really geared around hardcore users. We use a lot of those gloves in mountain operations for ski resorts, tradesmen. So welding, any kind of hard work that happens, we are there as well. So those 3 buckets are really how we divide the brand. And for me, I interface with the team in Hestra. They have a centralized team that does all 3 of those lines. And then I am the lone wolf here in the U.S. for the brand. So I do all 3 of those lines.
Oh, wow. You cover all of them.
Yeah. So really kind of taking the craftsmanship and the brand message and pushing it into those unique channels. So it's a really fun and dynamic job, and there's always more work to be done.
Yeah, no doubt, with all those categories, and all those distribution channels. So talk about your go-to-market strategy. You must go to quite a few trade shows, or maybe you go to none and you just do it all. Well, these days, a lot of us go to none.
Right.
But
yes, that has shifted quite a bit in the last 18 months.
No doubt.
Every silo of the brand is different. So in the sport world, we do Outdoor Retailer and the SIA Snow Show in January. And so we really focus on that show. It's in the core of our sell-in season. Generally, we finish our sell-in season around mid-February. So that is really kind of the pinnacle of that season, is working towards OR. How do we get buyers there? How do we get appointments on the books? That is the key driver on that side of the business, is meeting with people face-to-face at those shows. And over the last year, we really had to shift that strategy to a digital one, where we're having more digital meetings when we use New Order on the back end of our business. So really using New Order as a driver of the digital showrooms and a key visual component to these digital meetings. And so that's the sports side. The job side is a little more grassroots. So we work primarily with garden centers and mountain operations and more direct to those organizations type of sales tactics. So we're really trying to get into the places where our gloves are most needed and best used.
Do road crews use them a lot?
Yeah, we have a little bit of that at this point, more mountain operations. So we have a lot of authenticity with those users because they're also skiers. And so lifties, mountain operations, patrollers, instructors, we use a lot of our job gloves in those applications when they're not recreationally skiing or instructing. They're doing work, right? And so we use that authenticity and put the job gloves in those scenarios. And then on the dress side, it's really PR driven. And so we just finished up a big media event with our PR partner. So we had a virtual showroom this week, and we do a lot of things around media. So we're working with Esquire and GQ and a lot of those publications to build exposure at the highest levels. And then working directly with boutiques and all kinds of different shops to get the right gloves into those shops. So really for us on that side of the business is about curating the right set of products for the right partners.
We're going to take a little break and give some love to our sponsor. I've heard from some of you photographers out there that you've always wanted to sell your photos online. Well, SmugMug makes it easy. With a few clicks, you can start selling prints and digital downloads right away. They handle everything from billing to shipping and work with some of the best labs in the world. RickSaezPhotography.com has been with SmugMug for over 20 years, and they've handled every transaction flawlessly. Go to ricksaez.com/sellphotos and try it for free. To set up your account today, go to ricksaez.com/sellphotos. Now back to the show. As a result of the pandemic having to shift gears and move away from some of the face-to-face, have you guys implemented any new tools? Like everybody talks about Zoom, but I think there's some other things that people can use video-wise to actually do virtual presentations. Anything new that you guys implemented or adopted or created?
Yeah, so we did a couple of things. One, we put together a series of cases. So we bought the big, like, Burley Pelican cases and put together a curated selection of samples and put them in those boxes and sent them on the road. And so we were lucky enough to be able to have multiple of those boxes out on the road at any given time. And so the buyers were able to actually get that tactile feeling of the dress glove specifically. Mm-hmm. And one of the things about Hestra is really you can articulate these attributes as much as you want to about how carefully we source our leathers and about how carefully we construct the gloves and all of those things that we go through painstakingly to put the gloves together for you. But at the end of the day, the difference is putting your hands in the gloves.
You got to see it and feel it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so that was key for us to really win over new buyers who were like, yeah, their gloves are an accessory. And us articulating like, yeah, but there's so much more than that.
Yeah, right.
And then when you are in real time on the video with the buyer as they slip their hand into the glove, then you get that reaction, right? And then you're saying, okay, we've got something special here. So that's been really, really helpful for us. And then on the other side, it's getting into shop employees and educating them on the nuance and the differentiation between Hestra and other glove companies. And so we use a platform called Endeavor, and we've been able to use that to connect with those shop employees who are actively on the floor selling Hestra products and to be able to connect with them in meaningful ways and give them education and the tools they need and the resources they need to be able to sell the gloves knowledgeably and to be able to recommend the right gloves. I think the key is with a 400 model line, how do you pare it down to the one model that specific user needs, right?
Right. Yeah, you cover a lot of activities and a lot of different avenues, so you have something for everything, I'll bet. Yeah. Let's circle back to the Seth Godin programs a little bit. So are there 2 or 3 tactics you've implemented in your day-to-day business that you picked up in those programs or anything, tactics or ideas? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the cornerstone things that Seth talks about is the concept of gloves or whatever business you're in, one size fits all just fits no one. And so what you need to do as a brand, as a creator of anything, products, services, media, is, he says, who is it that you seek to change? And so whether that is changing someone's mind or perception about your brand, whether that is changing their idea of what it means to do a certain activity or what that looks like, he talks about people like us do things like this. And so not to make generalizations of groups of people or even to exclude people, but to say, we're creating a product for this person, right? And so we're creating a glove for someone who is high output alpine touring, right? Or backcountry skiing, mountaineering, or riding the resort. And so through that creation process, we have that person in mind. And so what I have to keep in mind across these 400 models is who specifically is each one of these designed for?
Right.
How do we change their mind about the glove they're in versus the glove they could be in, or their perception of what kind of product they need, or their perception of the problem that they're facing? How do we come alongside them as a partner and say, hey, we've got something for that, or hey, here's a different way to consider that, or let's shift that perspective. And that's really driven a lot of what we do. And for us, the core of that is that we live and breathe gloves, and we're the glove experts. We only make gloves. We have only ever made gloves, and we will only ever make gloves. And so for us, it's pushing into that idea of we know everything that 85 years has given us in terms of glove craft. And most people see gloves as an accessory. So how do we change their mind about that? How do we build trust that we are the right solution for them and that we have a product that will fill the need that they're experiencing or that pain point that they're experiencing? We like to use the anecdote internally that if you're a skier, you've been to a ski resort and you've seen the mom, the dad, the family sitting at the base, the kid crying because their hands are cold, the dad sitting there doing the mental calculus of like, how many dollars am I spending per run? And we've all been there. We've all seen that happen. And so for us, it's okay, how do we build trust with these users and build the conscientiousness of this is an investment. Your gear is an investment from head to toe, all the way out to your fingertips, is an investment in the quality of your day and the quality of your activity and the quality of your family time together. And spending a little bit more on a product that can help solve those problems is a worthy expense, is a worthy thing to spend on. And so carefully considering where you're spending your dollars when it comes to your kit is important, because it's not just how do I look or how much did I spend, but it's also about the quality of the experience, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's like the 1,002 fans thing that from Kevin Kelly, right? If you find 1,000 people who exactly love what you do, or if you create something that's targeted at those 1,000 people, you'll have a pretty good brand, a pretty good business if you come up with something to sell to them. But it's got to be targeted for that specific group. It's got to be that specific. And I think there's a lot of opportunity. It's a challenge to find those 1,000 people, but they're there. They're like you, right? There's 1,000 people like you and I. Our doppelgangers are out there. We just need to find them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. Is there anything new coming out that you can talk about in the line?
Oh, yeah. We're doing some really interesting things with heated product. Over the last few years, we've really seen a shift in apparel. People have started thinking more about wearables and thinking more about analytics. I'm a runner, and so I have my watch, and at this point I feel weird going on a run without my watch. I feel exposed and under informed in terms of my performance.
Right.
And so people are starting to think in those terms. And I do think that there are days and there are times and applications where you just need to turn that stuff off, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of heated product, what we see is this movement to push your garments a little bit further, right? And how can we do that? And so the traditional model in the glove industry is we put heating elements in a glove, and you have 3-4 settings, and that keeps you going for 4, 6, 8, 10 hours of the day. And then you come back and you recharge those, which is a great application. And we have some really strong products in that area. I think the next horizon and what we're launching this year is called the Tactility Heat Liner, which is pretty incredible. So the whole concept is that you can make any glove a heated glove. Generally speaking, heated liners and heated gloves are bulky because of the electronics and the things you have to put in there. You obviously want them to be high loft because you want them to be warm. Mm-hmm. You want them to be waterproof. So you're putting all of these features into the glove, but that limits it in terms of application across multiple pairs of gloves.
It becomes a baseball mitt.
Right. And even more than that, it becomes, you have all of these things kind of baked into the product itself, and those things can't be extracted and applied elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And so with this Tactility Heat Liner, we have partnered with a company called InuHeat, who makes heated thread. And so where generally speaking, you have heating elements that are cables, these are heated threads that are applied to any garment, and they're heat bonded and taped onto the garment. So we found that our glove technology and liners packs a really good punch weight to warmth ratio. So we found a really thin, really durable, really warm liner that can fit under almost any glove. And we applied this InuHeat product to that liner. The beauty of it is that you can wear it as just a liner by itself, or you can put it under literally any glove. It is thin enough to slide under any of our gloves. And if you know Hestr, we have some really tailored fitting gloves, especially from our Ergo Grip line, but these will fit under any glove. So you can make any glove a heated glove, and you can kind of carry that with you across all of your glove quiver, which is something that we have not seen before and something we're really excited about.
That's huge. Yeah. Wow. And that's going to launch next year or soon, or?
That's launching this October.
Okay.
So just a few days from now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right around the corner. I'll bet you're busy with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say those supplies this year are extremely limited. So if you can find a pair, I would highly recommend getting into them. We're going to scale up next year, I believe.
Yeah, well, and everybody's having challenges on that end. We won't get into that. That'd be a whole nother show. How about your 3 top marketing tips every outdoor marketing manager needs to know? What are those?
I would say 1, understanding yourself and your value to your organization. And this doesn't sound like a marketing tip, but if you've worked in the outdoor industry, you know that a lot of the companies are small and medium sized. And so early in my career, I found myself trying to be everything to everyone and not understanding really where my value was to the organization, where I can make the most impact. And as I've grown with companies, I've realized, hey, there's a handful of things that I'm really good at, and there are other things that I'm not, or there are things within the context of the company that we do really well, and let's focus our time and energy there. Because if you're in this industry and you're on a marketing team, generally speaking, you're doing a lot of different things. And so that prioritization is really important. And that goes all the way back to, what is your brand all about? Mm-hmm. And so I'd say that's the second thing, is understanding the message of your brand. It's really easy to get caught chasing and seeing what everyone else is doing. And I can't tell you how many meetings I've sat in over the years. I've been in this industry a decade. And so I've sat in tons and tons of meetings where people internally were saying, well, this other brand is doing this, or our competitor is doing that. And I always, I just want to kind of pull my hair out when I hear that, because we want to be true to who we are.
Right.
And if we take care of us, and if we are true to the mission that we've put in place and to those things that we exist for, then everything else will take care of itself, right? People see that and understand that, and people resonate with the message of who we are. And if we've crafted that message well, and if the company is on track with that, then that cures a lot of things, right? And that makes people understand and gives connection with those users that we seek to serve.
Yeah, it focuses right back to your target audience, your 1,000 true fans. Exactly.
Absolutely. And it's really kind of keeping that narrow focus, and that narrow focus will scale, right? At a certain point, it will begin to scale. And when you get to that tipping point with that 1,000 true fans, then you start to see that momentum, right?
Right.
And it starts to roll downhill.
Yeah.
And I guess, to that, we'll progress forward, right? So this can be a linear thing. So you get to that point, and then it's about understanding what it means to scale, and scale your marketing, and scale yourself, and scale your products. Because the more eyeballs you have on your brand, the more people want a piece. And so the more you have to protect that mission, and the more you have to say no. So in the beginning, it's about, how can I get the exposure? I'm pushing the rock up the hill, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to the top of the hill, it's about, how do I put on the brakes a little bit, and how do we do things in a meaningful way and build towards a sustainable future for our company? My father-in-law is in the running specialty business. He owns a running specialty store, one location, no real website to speak of. And he knows what his business is. And he told me, and this is great advice for anyone, businesses don't fail because they have too little business. They fail because they have too much business and they can't handle it. They can't scale, right?
Yep. They get distracted and they get financially challenged. So many things. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And you're pulling in a million different directions, right? I mean, we have people every day. As a lone person here, I'm getting sponsorship requests. I'm getting partnership requests. I'm getting people who want me to use their software, to buy ads with them, to do all of these things. And so really it's about understanding and asking yourself the same questions. Every single decision you have to make should go back to that ground zero of, who are we and what are we trying to do?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't fit that, then don't do it.
Yeah. Well, and you said earlier, people like us do things like this. If it doesn't fit the people like us or the things like this, it's out. The answer is no.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love it. Let's shift gears here. What outdoor activities do you participate in? You still climb and ski and run, sounds like. Do you get on a bike and paddle or anything?
So my wife bought a paddleboard this summer. So I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And so we spend a good amount of time on the water, paddling around and exposing them to that, which is pretty awesome. And I am, today is the 23rd. So I am about 23 days out from a marathon. So that has become all consuming. And yeah, I was a runner through high school and a soccer player. And so running is really core to who I am and to my identity as an athlete and as a person. And so really spending a lot of time doing that, and then an eye on the ski season. We just got a little bit of snow up in the high country here in Colorado. So yeah, looking to get out a lot this year and make some turns.
Good for you. That's cool. Yeah, running is a great sport. I miss it. It's super fun. Do you have any suggestions or advice for folks wanting to get into the outdoor biz? Yeah,
I would say a couple of things. I think this industry has evolved at a rapid rate. And I remember the days, and you probably do too, where people would get jobs based on, I'm a climber, I'm a skier, I know the subject matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think those days are, I won't say behind us, but I think the industry has evolved.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm in all of the groups on social media and LinkedIn and all those things where people are constantly asking, like, I love camping and hiking. How do I get into the outdoor industry?
Mm-hmm.
And my question back to those people is like, well, what are you good at? What are you interested in providing to a brand? Like, what value do you bring to a company, to a brand? How can you push that brand forward? And understanding your value and your attributes and understanding yourself before you step into that realm. And in anything you do, right? Understand your mission, understand who you are and what you bring to the table, and find a company that values those things and that's looking for the same things.
Mm-hmm.
Looking for jobs is the two-way street, right? And when you get to the interview process, it's a two-way interview. And so asking the questions, and when I was job searching, I would look at hundreds of job descriptions for jobs that I found interesting. And I would start to cull that down and copy and paste into a document all of the things I liked or thought I could do, right? And then all the companies that sounded like they might be places I'd like to work. Maybe they had a mission that resonated with me. Maybe they make products that I really liked or was passionate about. Maybe they operated in a space where I operate, running companies or whatever. Mm-hmm. I work for a ski glove company now. So really starting to understand and hone in on what it is you're looking for specifically. And then the second piece of that is once you know that, finding out who the people are, the key people are in those spaces, in those companies, and reaching out. I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to people and just said, hey, I'd love to just have a conversation with you. And I'd love to pick your brain about this or that. And this industry is wonderful for that. People are so stoked to talk shop. And so people are super receptive. So never hesitate to ask the question, right? I've had people who've just completely not answered me, and that's fine too. But at the end of the day, I think more often than not, people have been receptive and super helpful in helping forge my path.
That's really good advice. I think you need to narrow down what you want and you're about and narrow down the places that can give that to you and just be relentless in pursuing it. That's great advice. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. What's your favorite outdoor gear purchase under $100?
So I've been running a lot and so I'm about to start my taper. So, thank goodness. But there's a brand out of Montreal. I love kind of smaller brands that do accessory things, as you can imagine. And there's a company called Ciele, C-I-E-L-E, and they make a product called the Go Cap. So all they do is running hats. And this Go Cap, I've probably run 600 to 700 miles in this hat, and it looks brand new. And it looks good. It's got a really nice design. The fabrics are fantastic. I can throw it in the washing machine. And I have found myself wearing that more often than not. Actually, my friends and I, we live within a few blocks of each other. We're all running the same marathon. We all are training, putting in a lot of miles. And they always say they can see me coming a mile away because of that hat. So I have loved it.
Well, we'll link to that in the show notes. We'll find that. Yeah, that sounds like a good one. As we wrap up here, is there anything else you'd like to say or ask of our listeners?
Yeah, I think that as this industry starts to evolve, we're really starting to see people champion diversity and inclusion and really opening the doors to the outdoors to everyone. And so I would just challenge everyone to challenge your own assumptions, right? We are all products of our backgrounds and our histories, and we're all at a point as a nation collectively where we need to challenge those assumptions. And so put yourself in uncomfortable situations, ask the hard questions, and find people around you who can help you answer those questions. That's something that I've found really, really useful over the last few weeks and months. And I had a conversation with Melanie Hood, who's the marketing manager at Scarpa recently, about all of the wonderful things they're doing through their mentorship program and to really champion diversity in the industry and inclusion and representation. And so just challenge yourself, right? Go ask those questions and really take a learning mindset. Never stop learning. Never, never, never stop learning. My wife's an educator and she always talks about a growth mindset and a learning mindset. And I want to always cultivate in myself and in the people around me a lifestyle of learning. So that is my challenge to all of you listeners.
Love it. That's a good challenge. I am 100% behind that. I try to keep learning my entire life. There's so many things to learn. It's amazing, right? I mean,
right.
Holy cow. Yeah. And if people want to follow up with you, where can they find you?
Yep. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. My Instagram handle is @DrewEakins or @Hestra Gloves. And yeah, we're at an open house. We're here in Arvada, Colorado. So right on the crest of the hill, I can see Denver on the east side and the mountains on the west side. So if you're ever in our neighborhood, feel free to drop by and I'll show you the 400 models of gloves in our showroom.
Nice. Well, I look forward to seeing that next time I'm in Denver. I got to check that out.
Absolutely. Come on in.
Yeah, I will, definitely. I'm sure we'll connect to the show too if we ever go back to those. Well, it's been great chatting with you this morning. Thanks for coming on. I look forward to connecting again.
Likewise. Thanks, Rick.
And we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Drew.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, theoutdoorbizpodcast.com, where you'll find show notes with links to everything we talked about and more. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or spread the word and tell a friend about the show. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week. And thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Rick Saez.